My project is on women in politics in the Tudor court. To understand the ways in which women who held power during the Tudor period were perceived and challenged, it's important to first grasp society's expectations of them. The ideal Tudor woman was fair, demure, intelligent but never outspoken, chaste, and pious. And of course, she would deliver many sons to continue any family line. Men viewed women as the weaker sex at the time. They were thought to be prone to gossip, temptation, and sin, and they were largely expected to fail without the guidance of a man. Tudor queens, however, were somewhat of an exception. They were meant to toe a line between remaining modest and respectable and yet being alluring, and the woman to which every courtier owed poems and declarations of love. Prior to Elizabeth I in her golden age, England had never had a truly successful female monarch. During Henry VIII's reign, Empress Matilda, who lived from 1102 to 1167, was the only example of an attempt to have a woman on the throne, and she was defeated by her cousin Stephen, so that wasn't exactly a positive example for already unenthusiastic Tudor minds. Henry VIII's first wife, Catherine of Aragon, was a Spanish princess. Her motto was humble and loyal. She was originally married to Arthur, Henry VIII's brother, but he passed away pretty quickly after their wedding, and she was practically stranded in England. For a bit, Henry VII, Henry VIII's father, apparently considered marrying her, but he passed away before that could become reality, and she ended up marrying Henry VIII after his accession on the 11th of June in 1509. So, prior to their marriage, in 1503, Catherine was betrothed to Henry, but the condition of the betrothal was that her father, Ferdinand of Aragon, would pay 100,000 crowns in plates, jewelry, and more by 1505. It hadn't been received. She wrote to her father, "As for me, I have had so much pain and annoyance that I have lost my health in a great measure. I shall soon die." Catherine survived mostly by selling her possessions and would not have been capable of doing so without possessing a strong character. So, after the couple's marriage, basically their marriage is really watered down by the media and by popular culture now, and represented only by a series of miscarriages and misfortune. But it's important that we examine these women through a modern lens and not through what their contemporary society would have used to decide their value. For instance, it is often overlooked to an extent that Catherine was extremely intelligent and proud of her ancestry as the daughter of warrior Queen Isabella of Castile. Catherine utilized her education and wit throughout her marriage to earn the trust of her husband, and eventually their marriage would crumble, but for a while they were something like partners and equals. So when Henry went off to campaign against the French in 1513, Catherine supported these ambitions wholeheartedly, and he was impressed enough with her to leave her as regent, which meant she was completely in control of England while he was gone. 2 months after Henry left for the war, James IV, the King of Scotland, invaded England, and his troops captured multiple English castles. Catherine ordered two armies to face the Scots, and then she went as far as to march to the north herself to face the Scottish forces with a third army. They were defeated on the 9th of September, 1513, at the Battle of Flodden Field, and Catherine originally wanted to send her husband the body of King James, but settled for a piece of his bloody cloak instead. In a letter to Henry, she wrote, "I could not send your grace the piece of the King of Scots' coat, which John Glynn now bringeth. In this your grace shall see how I can keep my promise, sending you for your banners a king's coat. I thought to send himself to you, but our Englishmen's hearts would not suffer it." Her demonstration of power was an outstanding one, but her actions were not the desired ones of a wife. Later on in her life, after he left her for Anne Boleyn and she was stripped of her title and sent away from court, she refused to allow anyone to address her as anything other than the Queen of England. And even in her final letter to Henry, she signed off as Catherine the Queen. Catherine earned Henry's love with her beauty and wit, but her efforts to prove herself as a devoted wife were seen almost as an attempt to outshine him, and having a son was just more important to him overall. Henry's second wife was Anne Boleyn. Her motto was "Let them grumble." That is how it's going to be, or at least that was her first motto. She is certainly the most well known of Henry VIII's wives, probably because she seems so modern compared to her contemporary peers.